Hello F11 members, and welcome to the fundamentals of post-production video tutorials for issue 36, the 1st of January 2015. So what I'd like to do with you today is take you through the conversion of this image here on the left of the Jurassic Coast, looking down from Bat's Head on Doodledore, east towards Lulworth and beyond, and making the black and white version of it that you see on the right. This image here is untouched, straight out the camera, the raw, and black and white conversions are quite an interesting thing to do. Take a bit of thought, take a bit of practice. So let's get started. And what I'm going to do is take you into Lightroom, and here is the picture straight out of the camera. And what I'm going to do now is process the image first, as I would do normally, in color, and then we'll move forward to making the black and white version of it. So the image itself is a perfect exposure. Looking at the histogram here, a good spread. The histogram's as far to the right as it could be without losing any highlight information there. It looks, in this, looking at it here, a bit washed out, a bit kind of lacking in punch, but it's a good exposure. So first of all, as always, I'm going to look at the black and the white points, and the black point needs a bit of attention. I'm going to move that to the left here, hold down the Alt key. How far can I go before I start losing critical information? There you start seeing it, so I can go about that far, -33, and that has given the picture a bit more contrast to start with. I'm going to just take those white points a bit to the right. Again, hold down the Alt key, move white slider to the right, and we can go there without losing any highlight information. So there you have it. Picture looks a little bit too bright to my eyes at the moment, so I'm just going to darken it down with the tone curve. Just bring it down a touch there to, I'd say, round about there, and I'm going to give it a touch of vibrance. I'd say probably around about 10, and then come along here, add some sharpening, sharpen scenic, come down here. You know all this, we've done it so many times before. Hold down the Alt key, slide the masking slider to the right until it covers just really the sky, which is where we want to mask to stop that area being sharpened. And that is it. That's the color image pretty much as I would like it. But what I want to do now is move on to making the black and white version of it, which to my mind has more drama. So first thing I'm going to do is come along down here to this area. Hue, saturation, luminance, color, and black and white. Those three different sections, and if I click on the black and white here, it automatically converts the image to black and white. But that's just a start, because what I have here is, it says black and white mix, and we have the ability to channel mix, i.e. to make different color elements within the picture either darker or brighter. And if I just go back to the color version again, there's a fair bit of blue in this image, in the sea for example. Two dominant colors really, I would say, blue and greeny yellow. So if I come back to the black and white version and I take the blue slider here and move it to the left, I'm actually making the blue element within the picture darker. Now what that does is, if I take that off again, can you see how it makes the sea, or particularly the white in the sea, stand out against the blue much more dramatically? So I'm going to go all the way down to -100 on the blue to make that sea much more dramatic. And really that's quite interesting, and already it's given the image quite a bit of impact. Now what I'm going to do is just ignore the sky for the moment. I'm just working on the coast, the cliffs, the beach, the water, the doodle door. Just ignore the sky. So next thing I want to do is just darken down some of those highlights in here just a touch. So I'm going to come up here to highlights, pull them back a touch, not too much, and now then I want to put a touch of contrast in there, and I'm going to experiment by using this Lightroom default setting of medium contrast. Put that in there. Now look at that, that's starting to come to me, the picture, I believe, starting to get quite dramatic. Now clarity is something that I have great reservations about when shooting in color or processing color images. It's not something that I particularly like the look of, the local contrast it introduces, but in black and white it can sometimes be quite interesting. And if I put a touch of clarity, well, if I go way over, it's probably too much, but you can see it has quite an effect in black and white. Generally speaking, with our adjustments, the things we do to images in black and white tend to be much more extreme than in color. I'm just going to pull those highlights back a touch because I feel I've lost a bit of tone here in the cliffs there, and it's looking quite good there. So just pause and consider. I like this image and I'm pretty much happy with that apart from the sky. So what I'm going to do is export this. If I go library, export, and I'm going to put it in a folder here, as I always do, called processed. Select folder, and I'm going to put it in a folder, subfolder called, I'll just call it Doodle for the moment, and I want it to be a TIFF. I want to rename it to Doodle with its case extension, the number. Do not want to resize, I want it to be a resolution 300. Do nothing. Okay, now I'm going to go back to that image, and now just look at the sky. So let's go back to where we started really with black and white and go to a linear tone curve there, and I'm going to take that blue color mixing out. I want to leave a bit in there, around about -20 there. Okay, and next thing I'm going to do is go to the whites up here, and what I want to do is adjust the white point, ignoring the bottom portion of the image. I'm only looking at the sky. So I move this to the right. I'm not worried about that clipping that's taking place. The bottom of the frame there, I can go that far, all the way that far before any clipping takes place in the sky. I'm going to do the same. Alt, hold down the Alt slider, move the blacks to the left, and I can go virtually all the way just to about there, around about -90 on the blacks, and then I'm going to come down to the tone curve. What I'm trying to do is get a sky that I like the look of, and it's all better than when I started, much better. I'm now going to adjust the darkness till it gives me something like the density I want, put in a bit of a tone curve for a bit of contrast. You can be so subtle with this. Quite like that sky, and that's it. So I'm going to export that as well, and what we'll do is bring those two together in Photoshop to make the finished black and white image. So there are the two images next to each other in Photoshop, what I'm going to do is take the sky from this image and merge it with the seascape from this image. Easy enough thing to do. So let's first, before I do anything, take this and make a duplicate layer, which I'm just going to lay on top of that one. Okay, so that's done that. If I bring the layers folder in here, you can see there's a background copy on top of the background, both at the moment indistinguishable from each other. The reason I'm doing this is because I'm going to do some local adjustments to the image, and I'm going to work on a layer rather than and practice non-destructive editing. Okay, next thing I do is take this image and go select all, edit, copy, and then paste that on top of the other image. Edit, paste. I can close this image down now. I've finished with it, and now if I bring the layers palette back in again here, we have 3 layers. We have the dark layer, or the high contrast layer for the sky. We have the background copy and 2 identical layers at the moment. So what I'm going to do is take this image, take the top layer, and just select the bit that I want. So I'm going to bring my tools in here and use the lasso tool and just select around about the area of the sky. Now I'm going to feather that selection, select modify feather, and I'm going to go for a feather radius of, let's say, 250 pixels. And now if I go layer, layer mask, and reveal the selection, there we have the sky on top of the other landscape with the mask applied to the bottom section so that we're only seeing the sky. I could, if I wanted to, choose to modify that layer to fine-tune the join, as it were, but actually it looks pretty good. I don't think it needs any attention really. There's no haloing. It looks natural. I'm quite pleased with that. In fact, I'm pretty pleased with the image overall, generally speaking. But I think just a little bit of fine-tuning will benefit it. So I'm going to basically take the halo brush again, and halo tool, sorry, lasso tool, that's the word I'm looking for, and just select some of the water here. Again, I'm going to feather that, and if I just show you something, this is my actions, things that I do often. Feathering is something I do often, and instead of going up here and going, you know, select modify feather, I have an action made which I just click on that and it will feather that selection for me. So let's just move that out, back out the way for the moment. And now I'm just going to go image adjustments, curves, and just fine tune this area that I've selected here. Click on that. Now if you see what I was trying to do there, I was trying to basically adjust the curves for the actual mask, so I need to make sure that the actual right layer is selected. So I just go cancel that, select the background, the middle layer, and now go image adjustments, curves. Those sort of things can get you really scratching your head sometimes. It just pays to stop and think. So there I've got the tone curve and the histogram just for that selected area of the middle layer. What I want to do is fine tune the contrast of this layer itself, so again hold down the Alt slider and then just move this along until I start to see some clipping starting to appear. You can see there if I go too far, so I can come to about there without clipping anything, and the same with the black point. And if I now preview that on and off, you can see it's giving that area of the water much better contrast. Okay, these little adjustments that can really help really lift a picture. I'm just going to actually give a touch more brightness to that image, that part of the image. Touch of a curve in there, and there you go. Quite happy with that. Select, deselect. Now what I want to do actually is just lift in here some of the shadow detail in that portion of the of Doodle Door. So actually at this point I'm just going to flatten the image. So if I go, no I'm not, I'm going to take these two layers here, let's highlight those, and now if I right click on them, come down here and it says merge layers, click on that, and now I've just got two layers. Okay, the top one where I'm making all my adjustments, and the bottom one. Right, so what I want to do now is just look at this, and yes, I was talking about just bringing up some of the shadow detail in there, in that area of the arch. So what I'm going to do is use again the lasso tool here and just roughly select an area around here. Comsat, not at all precise. I'm going to feather it again using my actions here, and I'm going to feather it with a radius of 50 pixels. Click on that, and now if I go image adjustments, you come down here and there is shadows, highlights. If I bring this over here, now as you can see it's got, as by default, the shadow boosting way up to 35% there, which looks totally false, totally unreal. Let's just take that off, and I have no boosting of the shadows or highlights at the moment. What I'm going to do is just boost the shadows in that portion of the image just a touch, round about 6%. Click that on and off, and it just lifts that area of the door. It's almost too much actually. Going to come back to 5. I need to be subtle, always need to be subtle. I'm quite happy with that. Select, deselect, and that pretty much is my image. I think that's worked well. I think it's a black and white image with good tonal range, good impact, believable as well. Sky doesn't look too over the top. I'm well happy with it. Okay, we'll move on in part 2 to something else. Don't know what yet. I'll get back to you subsequently.